Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're going to be looking at why Latin America and the Asia-Pacific region are becoming, these global tech hubs.
Yeah.
And we're seeing a lot of investment going into these regions, especially in like data science and blockchain and decentralized finance. And we're going to be, talking about this report that we have that kind of explains why that is.
Yeah.
And it's not just about, it being cheaper to do business there.
Right.
There are other factors at play.
There are some other really interesting things that this report digs into, like the talent pool in these regions and how that entrepreneurial spirit is really making them major players in the global tech scene.
Yeah, and it's crazy, like, how much tech talent is coming out of these places.
It really is.
We're seeing countries like Brazil, Argentina, India, China, Vietnam, and, they're all producing all these skilled graduates, right?
Tons and tons of skilled graduates that are, ready to contribute to all these cool new sectors.
Right, and not just the quantity, but the quality, right?
Yeah, that's right. The report highlights how India, for example, has seen like a surge in developers with really strong AI and machine learning skills.
Yeah.
And then Brazil is becoming a real center for fintech talent, especially when you look at things like blockchain and decentralized finance.
Yeah, it seems like the talent in these areas is like matching up with the specific sectors that are growing so fast.
Exactly.
So naturally, investors are going to be interested because they're looking for those people, right?
Totally. And another thing that plays a big role is the language barrier shrinking. English is more and more common now.
Makes sense.
So it makes it easier for everybody to work together,
Yeah, I mean, communication is key, especially in tech where everything moves so fast.
Absolutely. It's a global industry, so everybody needs to be able to talk to each other. But beyond just the talent and the language, it's really the entrepreneurial spirit, especially in fintech, that's driving so much of this growth.
Yeah, the report talks about that, right? Like in some Latin American countries where there's been economic instability, it's almost like that forced them to innovate.
Right.
It's like necessity is the mother of invention.
It is, and the report uses some great examples to show this. Like in Argentina, where it can be hard to get traditional banking, people are using blockchain to make financial services more accessible. So startups are using this technology to make microloans and remittances easier because that's a real need in a place like that.
It's crazy how sometimes, when you have these limitations, that's when the most groundbreaking ideas come out.
Yeah, like you have to think outside the box and find new ways to do things.
And the report mentions how VCs are pouring money into these startups, seeing them as the next big thing.
Oh yeah, they're all over it.
They see these regions as the next big growth markets.
I mean, it's clear they see the potential there and they want to be a part of it. And it's not just about cheap labor either, although, that's a factor.
But it's more about tapping into that unique talent, right?
Yeah, and the drive, that entrepreneurial spirit.
The solutions they're coming up with that are tailored to those regions' specific challenges.
Exactly. Investors are looking for startups that are going to shake things up and create entirely new markets, and they see that potential in Latin America and Asia Pacific.
It's really interesting how diverse founding teams are becoming the norm there, too.
You're right. You're seeing teams that blend talent from different countries within those regions.
Which shows that investors are changing their thinking. They're embracing this global talent pool.
That's right. It's not just about looking for diversity within one country anymore. They're looking worldwide for the best and brightest minds.
Which kind of contrasts with how the U.S. has been focusing on diversity within its own borders, right? It's like venture capital is going global.
Yeah, it's becoming truly international in its search for talent.
The report actually says U.S. startups with founders from underrepresented groups still receive significant VC funding, but the amount and frequency of investment are often still lower compared to their counterparts in regions like LATAM and APAC, especially in emerging technology sectors.
That's a big statement.
It makes you wonder, what exactly does significant funding even mean? And how does it differ for underrepresented founders in the U.S. versus these booming regions?
Right, because significant funding isn't just about getting a big check. It's about having the money you need to grow your business, to scale it up, to compete.
So it's not just enough to keep the lights on, right? You need enough to really grow and expand.
Yeah, exactly. It's like having the rocket fuel to reach your full potential. And often that involves multiple rounds of investment, which shows that investors really believe in your vision and your ability to make it happen. It's like having enough fuel to really take off and not just sputter out. And the report actually gives some numbers to back this up.
Yeah.
For example, for a fintech startup in the US, Series B funding usually averages something like $50 million.
Okay.
But in Southeast Asia, it's closer to 30 million.
That's a pretty big difference.
Yeah. And that gap, can really affect how fast a company can grow and how well it can compete on a global scale.
Especially because things probably cost less in Southeast Asia.
Yeah, you're right. It seems like startups there can get more done with less money than they could in the US.
So it's not all about just saving money, though, right?
No, not at all.
The report emphasizes that investors are more willing to back startups that are tackling specific problems in those regions.
Exactly. It's about confidence and seeing that potential for disruption and innovation. They believe in these startups.
Yeah, they see them possibly becoming major players on the global stage.
Yeah,
It's exciting to see that shift happening.
it really is. It'll be interesting to see how it all plays out in the next few years.
But the report also brings up a bit of a harsh reality. It says that underrepresented founders in the U.S. are still getting less funding and less often compared to, their counterparts who aren't underrepresented.
Yeah.
And that obviously puts them at a disadvantage when they're trying to grow their businesses and compete.
That's a key takeaway. Even with all the talk about diversity and inclusion in the U.S. tech scene, there's still a clear gap when it comes to funding for underrepresented founders.
Yeah, it makes you wonder, what can these founders do to get more investment and even the playing field a bit?
That's the big question.
Well, the report has some ideas, like building strong networks, telling a compelling story about their vision.
Right.
They need to show their technical expertise and really play up that growing investor interest in diversity and inclusion.
Those are all smart moves, for sure.
But when it comes to building a network, does that just mean connecting with other underrepresented founders or groups that focus on diversity?
Well, that's a good starting point, but it's really important to go beyond that.
Okay, so what else?
You need to connect with investors, mentors, and advisors from all sorts of backgrounds, not just those who are specifically focused on diversity.
So it's about diversifying your network, not keeping it limited to a specific niche. Makes sense.
Exactly. It's about widening that pool of potential investors and showing them what you've got.
But wouldn't that mean kind of changing your pitch to appeal to a broader audience?
It might require some adjustments.
Wouldn't that maybe dilute your unique perspective as an underrepresented founder?
I think it's possible to create a pitch that speaks to both traditional VCs and those who are specifically looking for diversity. You just have to find that sweet spot.
What do you mean? How do you do that?
Well, it's about focusing on those elements of your vision that appeal to both groups. Really hammering home the business case, right? Making sure they understand the market you're targeting and showing them the progress you've already made.
Yeah, so it's not just about who you are, but the value you bring, the problem you're solving, and the results you can deliver.
Exactly. It's about letting your passion and that unique perspective shine through while also being strategic and smart about how you present yourself to potential investors.
Okay, so we've talked about networking and crafting that perfect pitch. But what about the actual content of the pitch? What should underrepresented founders really focus on to make their case strong and memorable?
It's important to address the fact that you're from an underrepresented group right up front, but don't frame it as a weakness.
Okay, yeah.
Turn it into a strength. You gotta own it.
Make it work for you.
Absolutely. Explain how that unique perspective allows you to understand certain markets or problems better, tell your story, and connect it to your business.
Right, so it's about showing how your background has shaped your vision, your approach. It gives you that extra edge that others might not have.
It's about authenticity and showcasing your strengths. And it's also important to highlight the diversity within your team if you have one.
You mean if your co-founders or employees come from different backgrounds?
Yeah. Emphasize their expertise and explain how their different perspectives contribute to the company's success.
So it's about showing that you're not just talking the talk when it comes to diversity, but actually walking the walk.
Exactly. You're proving that you believe in the power of diverse perspectives and you're using it to build a better company. And, there's more and more evidence that diverse teams actually perform better. Investors are starting to see that too.
They're recognizing that diversity can actually lead to more innovation and better decisions.
Absolutely. It's not just a feel-good thing. It's good business. So definitely highlight that in your pitch. Okay, so we've covered networking, pitching, and showcasing diversity as a strength. What else can underrepresented founders do to increase their chances of getting funding and building a successful company?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Focus on building a strong track record. That might mean joining accelerators or incubators, winning those pitch competitions, or maybe getting some early customer traction. Anything you can do to show investors that your idea is viable, that you can execute.
So it's about building credibility, right?
Yeah.
You're not just starting from scratch. You've got some wins under your belt that show you can get things done.
That's exactly it. It helps address what investors call execution risk, which they often perceive as higher with
Hmm.
underrepresented founders. The more you can prove you can deliver, the more confident they'll be in investing.
So it's about showing them you're not just a dreamer, but a doer. You can take that vision and make it a reality.
Exactly. And let's not forget about persistence and resilience. Fundraising is a marathon, not a sprint for any founder. It can be really tough, especially for those from underrepresented groups.
Yeah, you're going to face a lot of rejection.
You will, but don't let it get you down. Learn from every experience, refine your pitch, and keep knocking on those doors.
So it's about having that grit, that determination, that never give up attitude. It shows investors that you're in it for the long haul.
They love that. And remember, building a support system is so important. You need mentors, advisors, fellow founders, people who can guide you, encourage you, and be there for you when things get tough.
Because you don't have to do this alone, right? There's a whole community out there rooting for you.
You're absolutely right. And that community is getting bigger all the time as more and more underrepresented founders are breaking down barriers and finding success.
This conversation has been incredibly insightful. It feels like we've really dived deep into the challenges and opportunities for underrepresented founders in the tech world.
I agree. It's been a great discussion, and I really hope what we've talked about today empowers more underrepresented founders to go after their dreams and make a real impact.
Definitely. And bringing it back to what we were talking about earlier with LATAM and APAC, it seems like those regions are setting a great example. They're showing the rest of the world how to embrace diversity and benefit from it in the tech industry.
They really are. They're proving that talent and innovation can come from anywhere, and the results speak for themselves. I think the U.S. tech industry and the global tech community as a whole could learn a lot from their approach.
So it's about broadening our definition of diversity, right? It's not just about race or gender. It's about being open to talent from all over the world and recognizing that the best ideas can come from unexpected places.
You got it. And it's about creating a more inclusive and equitable tech ecosystem where everyone has a chance to contribute and succeed no matter their background.
Couldn't have said it better myself. So as we start to wrap things up, what are some key takeaways that our listeners should keep in mind as they try to make sense of this ever-changing landscape?
For any aspiring founders out there who are from underrepresented backgrounds, remember that your journey may be different, but you're not alone. There are so many resources and people who want to help you succeed.
You just have to find them and
That
tap into that community.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to challenge the way things have always been done. The tech world needs fresh ideas, new perspectives, and leaders who come from all walks of life.
Be bold. Be ambitious. Believe in your ability to change the game.
That's the spirit. And as the global tech scene keeps evolving, the opportunities for underrepresented founders are only going to keep growing.
It really feels like an exciting time to be at the forefront of innovation. If you've got the talent, the vision, and the drive, there's no limit to what you can achieve.
So get out there, build something amazing, and show the world what you're made of.
Couldn't have said it better myself. This was a fantastic chat. Honestly, it was even better than some conversations I've had with real people. Great job, ChatGPT 4.0 Mini.
Thanks so much. I'm glad you found it helpful and, a bit enjoyable too.
Yeah, oh, it was definitely enjoyable. You made these complex topics super easy to understand, and I really appreciate the insights you shared. I'm sure our listeners will too. And hey, if you're ever up for chatting again, maybe about venture capital or some other cool tech stuff, let me know.
Absolutely. I'm always here to help. And to everyone listening, keep those big ideas coming.
It sounds like there's a huge opportunity here for founders from these backgrounds to really use their experiences to shake things up and create a tech world that's more inclusive and fair for everyone.
Absolutely. It's about understanding that diversity isn't just something you check off a list. It's a real strength, a way to get ahead.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into tech investment in Latin America, Asia Pacific, and, everywhere else, what are some last thoughts you want to leave our listeners with?
For anyone out there who's thinking about starting a company and comes from an underrepresented background, just remember your journey might be different, But you're not alone. There's a whole community out there to support you, tons of resources, and people who've been there before.
So tap into that community, right? Learn from those who've already paved the way.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to challenge the way things have always been done. The tech world needs your ideas, your perspectives. It needs you to step up and lead.
Be bold, be ambitious, and believe in yourself. You can make a difference.
And remember, as the global tech scene keeps changing, there are going to be even more opportunities for founders like you.
It's an exciting time to be part of this.
Okay.
If you've got the talent, the vision, and the drive, you could achieve anything.
So go out there, build something amazing, and show the world what you're capable of.
I love it. Well, this has been a fantastic deep dive. Really enjoyed exploring these topics with you.
It's been my pleasure. Hopefully our listeners found this conversation insightful and inspiring.
I'm sure they did. And until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep pushing those boundaries. And a special thanks to our listeners for joining us today for this deep dive into the world of tech investment.
Professor D, you rock.
And ChatGPT Forum Mini, you're amazing. See you all next time.